Welcome to Life Lessons of a Creative Entrepreneur. Today I have a very special guest. I mean, all my guests are special, and this one is not an exception. Kris Van Loan II. And I'm just like really excited to specifically talk to him about a journey that he just went on where he for 5 days created 100 videos for a client for a course. So we're going to dive into what that looked like and everything that had to happen to bring it together, from logistics to the shooting to then the delivery. So Kris, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to have you on the show.
All right, thank you so much for having me on. I really started working with entrepreneurs specifically about 8 years ago. Went to film school at the University of Texas, and it's been quite a journey. Everything from working in weddings for 3 years, working at a multimedia marketing agency for 3 years, working specifically with Ryan Moran, this e-commerce guru, for 3 years. You can see a pattern here. After about 3 years, I start to get a little bored and need to like switch it up. And then I just decided during the middle of COVID to start my own agency. And it was really just because, I don't know, I was needing more input, more creative control, more diversity of clients, more projects I wanted to dive really deeply into. And so even though during COVID, a lot of video work slowed down, I knew that I needed to see how far down that road I could go. I had been essentially like amplifying the voices of other entrepreneurs. And obviously, I think the reason I was so drawn to creating content for entrepreneurs is there was something deep inside of me that wanted to become an entrepreneur myself. So this shoot, though, specifically was with an entrepreneur named Mama Gina, aka Regina Thomas Hauer. And she's like a women's coach who teaches women about like pleasure and relationships and, all of that good stuff. And the thought that has been lingering with me as we wrapped on this shoot is the reason we were able to get so much done is because I've been really partnering with entrepreneurs and on-camera talent who are also masters of their craft. And I think so often as creators, we think like, who would be willing to work with me, instead of thinking, who do I want to work with in an ideal scenario? And when you're working with someone who has been doing public speaking for 10, 20, 30 years at times, who feels so comfortable being on camera, who is just like such a rock star, then you can really develop a almost a director actor kind of relationship.
We were literally talking about this off camera, which is like, no one's doing no one a favor, and we're all really like it. When you, as a superhero yourself, when you partner with other superheroes, it just enhances everything tenfold, and it gives you that amazing experience. Like, we shouldn't be struggling and constantly having these nightmare scenarios. We should be having the most ideal scenarios happen, especially doing something creative like this. So I absolutely agree with you.
Let me tell you about some of the logistics of this shoot, right?
Okay.
So it's 5 days, 100 videos, and some of those are actually 30, 35, 40-minute videos. This is a lot of coursework. And then some of them are, of course, shorter, like 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And the reason we were able to make that work is we had to build out a team that would be capable of really getting the most out of our time, meaning the client is flying in from New York City, wants to batch as much as possible while she's here. And so that meant at times that we had 8 or 9 or 10 people on the set. I had a expert in courses kind of keeping us on track. I had producers, I had marketing, hair, makeup, assistant camera person. And so that kind of efficiency is really only possible by collaborating with other creative entrepreneurs, delegating, and also being comfortable with, part of collaboration is giving up creative control and working with other people's strengths. For me personally, I'm really not the best organizational and operational kind of person. So I need to lean on those others who can do that so well, so that we can all just stay in our own zone of genius, you know?
So is this the first time that you experience kind of something at this caliber where you have so many moving pieces happening at the same time? You have a very short deadline and you have to have like this huge amount of output?
Yeah, I would say so. In a lot of ways, this was very unique just in the volume of content and how short of a time frame we were trying to squeeze it into. And, you know, like I said, I don't want to take too much credit, because at the end of the day, I'm not the person on camera doing the speaking. I am an artist who is supporting an other artist in pulling out that information out of them, in creating, like holding space and creating an atmosphere and creating a set which encourages creativity, which like allows people to be vulnerable and to make mistakes. And there are so many soft skills that come to the front where creatives can kind of get caught up in the technical aspects of whatever it is, filmmaking, graphic design, anything. And at the end of the day, so much of it is, how are you as a human being connecting to other human beings in a way in which, you know, it's like 1 + 1 = 5. And those, you know, the sum of the parts is so much greater than we are individually.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely love that. I mean, the moment that I experienced working with a team, I knew that the quote unquote videographer world was not for me, right?
Mm,
Because there's just something so magical and special of not having to be in control of everything or having to be an octopus, so to speak.
yeah, yeah,
And then also sharing the responsibility of the deliverable, because when it's a team, it's no longer on just one person, right? That is a team effort. So having that kind of like, we're all going to battle together, it's a really, really amazing and unifying feeling. So I love everything about what you're saying with that experience, and also being in an environment that was supportive and conducive to creativity as well. So do you know by chance how much was the entire production, including all of the parts?
you know, I actually don't know everything, because there's so many moving pieces between an
Mm-hmm.
Airbnb that costs $900 a day to rent, and then
Mm-hmm.
we used a studio for multiple days, and then there is me and my video production team, and I don't know the kind of compensation of every single team member, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm just going to make a guesstimate. We
Yeah.
may be spending $10,000 a day. And so maybe this ends up being 50 to maybe $70,000 to produce this course, because there's the post production too. This particular product we're putting out to the world doesn't release until the fall. So
Mm.
there is so much lead up to the marketing and promotional materials of something like of this scope.
I literally light up when I hear about these stories, because it's just like so cool to just be a part of. How long were the days from what was the call time to when you went home?
Yeah, it's so funny that this was initially pitched to me by the producer as like, oh, you know, about like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Mm.
In reality, you know how these things are. In reality, it was more like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. kind of, you
Mm.
know, 10 to 12-hour days with lunch. And but here's the thing. Um, I often found myself having this feeling of, there's nothing else I would rather be doing in the world right now. And this doesn't feel like work. This feels like fun. And specifically with this shoot, one of the things I shared on my own personal social media is we would do dance breaks. You know, we would, and again, this comes back to keeping the morale and the energy of the team up. And now for me, being more introverted, like I'm probably not going to be like the lead cheerleader who gets everyone like pumped up. But it's worth thinking about, is there someone you can designate to just keep energy up, and what that might look like? Maybe it is putting on some music. I mean, we had a girl who was baking cookies and bringing like homemade goods to the set. We had flowers delivered to the set. We were getting like, Uber Eats. At the end of the day, we would like hop in the hot tub and pop some champagne. So finding that work-life balance that is going to, particularly when you're shooting back to back to back to back, how can you recover and jump back in the next day just like super fresh?
Yep. And that is, it's just everything about what you're saying. The client really cares about that experience that's being
Mm-hmm.
had in the moment of just not just a yes, you're doing this course and whatever, but it sounds like she's willing to go above and beyond to make sure that everything is really catering to that experience and everyone feels appreciated and validated and honored and respected. And that is
Yeah.
just so rare to finding clients. I mean, how many clients do you think that you worked with, and how many do you think have provided that kind of experience for you before?
It's hard to really think about all of the different entrepreneurs that I've kind of crossed paths with over the years. It may have been somewhere between 50 to 75 because some of those are one-off projects and some of
Mm-hmm.
these are people I work with for years. But I would say maybe 10 to 20%, I feel like there is like a deep connection.
Mm-hmm.
And lately, I've been really following this gut feeling of who is a pleasure to work with
Mm.
and who is like, as they say, there's some for the meal and there's some for the real. There's some you make money off of, and then there's some where you're like, oh my God, I'm so proud to have been a part of that. I would definitely encourage creatives to think about if you are posting, maybe it's just a little reel or behind the scenes picture, like what is the internal feeling of excitement around that? Because when you lean into that, the success and the money is just going to show up because you're going to be doing your best work when you are working with those clients that really like light a fire inside of you, and everything else will just take care of it. And so for me particularly, one of the things I'm realizing coming off of this shoot right now is that I really enjoy working with big personalities who
Mm.
are a little bit eccentric, a little bit crazy. Maybe for some, they might find those people difficult to work with. And for me, I find that to be so rewarding because I think those kinds of people are fellow creatives. So our minds can just like bounce ideas off of each other and get on the same page.
So basically, you had a crew of 8 to 10 people flowing in and out. This was 5 days. You got 10 to 20, 12 hours shoot days, right? You were
Mm-hmm.
at an Airbnb. Was everybody staying at the Airbnb, or would you just go home and then come back?
I got lucky as lead video guy that I got to stay at the Airbnb. But other people had like hotels. We had some people that were actually living like 15 minutes away from the Airbnb, so they'd prefer to just go home and come back.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like waking up on the set at work. It's just one more factor that you don't have to think about when you
Mm.
can like wake up, start setting up lights, equipment, charging batteries, double, triple checking everything, and just diving in. So like right now, I'm really just thinking, how do I get more of these type of shoots going?
Yeah, no, I can see it. You're excited. You're coming off of like, this is so far my best dream scenario. Now, how can I make this my daily life? That's freaking amazing and something to aspire to for sure. So you said you had a course expert that was there with you. Talk to me about that. What did you learn? I'm sure, every time I'm on a shoot, I always learn from whatever topic is happening. So talk to us a little bit about, what makes an amazing course.
Sure. So I was working with this woman who it's crazy that I just met her for the first time because we've been in similar circles for so like, oh yeah, I know them and you know them. This woman, Angela Rose, who
Mm,
has worked with some awesome entrepreneurs here like Preston Smiles, if you're familiar with him.
yes, I am.
And we ran into, I wouldn't say a conflict or a butting of heads, but just a dialogue, a bit of conversations, disagreements around the people who are with this influencer and wanting to be true to the brand and wanting to kind of stay true to her books and her teachings. And the course expert who is now coming in saying, kind of has different priorities. How do we turn this knowledge into a product, into a course that will take you from A to B, into something that will have inherent promises or hooks and deliver on those promises?
Mm,
And essentially what we're talking about is like, how do you take free content and turn it into paid content?
mm,
And I think one of there was so many things I learned. It's really hard to distill, but it's I think in a ways it's kind of following the model of like masterclass or taking a college course online, which is, it's one thing to watch some YouTube videos or audio book or read a book or whatever, and that's very interesting. But a course that you're selling, and particularly a course that might cost $3,000 to $5,000,
mm-hmm.
has to deliver on results and promises that are being marketed to the audience. And so it can't just be information for the sake of information. It has to be much more structured, but it also has to be engaging in a way that is going to hold kind of the students' attention as they go through. But then also, it has to give people like easy wins along the way. So you want the people who are consuming your content to feel as though they're growing their knowledge, they're being informed, they're engaged. There's a lot of things to balance here. And what I loved about working with this team is, so often I've actually seen people's free content be of a higher quality than their paid stuff behind the paywall. And this was one of those examples where the paid course we're creating here is so incredibly high quality. It's on par with, just about anything out there.
Wow. Are you a big course person?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely been a big focus of my business, and also something that I have gone through as an entrepreneur, as a creator. When I was working at capitalism.com, I was fortunate enough that the company bought me several courses about content, about marketing, about YouTube, and also flew me out to different events like Vid Summit in Los Angeles. So that's another way to really familiarize yourself with, like, if you aspire to create something, you need to be familiar with knowing that content as a consumer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I love that. I think that courses are definitely, a part of education. And I think that it's so powerful, especially like if it's someone that you follow for a long time or someone that you feel like, even just at this point, I feel like it's even so valuable to, maybe you're not teaching me something very specific, but you're giving me a glimpse as to what your process is. That's almost like sometimes incredibly valuable for me as an entrepreneur and as a filmmaker, because it allows me to, the more you understand how things work from as many perspectives as possible, the more confidence you gain to execute and not feel like, is this the right way? Is this the wrong way? Because, you understand, hey, these are all the models that exist. And I can take a little bit from each one, and create my own sauce. And so I love that very much. What do you think are the main components to having an amazing course?
Well, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but first and foremost, I keep coming back to like the star,
Mm,
the main teacher, the main person who is going to be the on-camera talent. That is the best starting place, because the truth is people don't respond to data. People connect to stories and emotions. So the information could be amazing, but if you're just telling people like your data and graphs and line charts and it's very academic, It's basically going to go in one ear and out the other. So what's, I would say, most important is having a storyteller, a great storyteller, have them tell great stories that will create a mindset shift in the perception of, the viewer, the listener, the person who is going through this course. And then the other thing I come back to is structure. And so with this particular course, with Regina, we really wanted to take 30 years of her work as an entrepreneur and solidify it into something that made sense, that could take you from A to B. And in this case, it's going to prepare you to become like a women's coach or an intimacy coach. So there is thinking about how the information in the course applies to you personally, how it applies to you as a coach, and then how it applies to you as a facilitator, as someone who might want to host events or work with multiple people, put on workshops and masterminds. So those were like the three things we kept coming back to. I mean, that's a specific example in this case. I always like to get back to kind of first principles of, before we get too far deep into the modules, let's like bring it back to, what is the purpose of this course? And we can get really caught up in the way it looks and the branding and the color schemes and the duration of videos and all. And I think all of the answers to those questions will be informed by, like, hold on, let's bring it back to the beginning. Like, what is the purpose here? And so often that can get lost, particularly when you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, all giving their input. I think, there's this great quote I heard a long time ago, which was basically, you get good talent, you get a good script, and then you get out of the way. Right. So you get a good team, you get good people on camera, and a lot of this stuff will honestly just take care of itself.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. I think that also, like, everyone, because they're so focused, or a lot of people are focused on the outcome of something, or they see someone really great execute at something, that they think that they can do it themselves, but don't realize how masterful that really is, and that it takes a really long time, and it takes a passion, and it takes really loving it, and it's technique, right? It's technique. And so, and it's reps, is repetitions, is putting it in. And so that all of those ingredients, that's what it takes for the recipe to be really great. And so I think that, that self-awareness piece is very important. I know that the courses, obviously, it's, everyone has a course, and, everyone feels like they can do a course. And it's almost like everyone's regurgitating the same information, just in different ways, but no one's actually giving any practical advice of anything tangible that you can actually apply to your own situation. So we're having like this influx of all these people just because they heard an ad, probably, I'm sure ads had to do with this, that says, like, build a profitable course in 1 week, and then are your passive income dreams are going to come true from it, and I think that we need to be much more realistic than that, and we need to understand that it takes a really, really long time to create anything worthwhile, and that it's thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of repetition and practice and dedication. So
I just want to piggyback off of that and say that,
yeah.
I think that there's really no such thing as like completely passive income, just like mailbox money. There's a lot of get rich quick kind of stuff out there. And let's say you create this amazing course and it all seems automated, and you have other people bringing in, fresh leads. Well, somebody still has to do customer support. Somebody still has to be maybe a community engagement person. And hey, those people are going to report to you if you're the person at the top. Or maybe this course will do really well for 6 months, 12 months, maybe even 18 months if you're lucky. And then maybe you'll start to see it kind of die. And that's okay. But it's important to have realistic expectations. And I often think of these things as more of that kind of like a short term project.
Mm-hmm.
And by short term, I mean like, a year. And then maybe it's kind of winding down and you're moving on to the next thing.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. We need to, it's like what I think Tony Robbins is the one that says is that we underestimate what we can do in 10 years and overestimate what we can do in 1 year. And so when we're talking about building these businesses and building these mega empires, I know everyone wants to have their empire, and I believe that there's a world where everyone has their empire. I think this is very, very possible. But I think also like we need to be doing that with a very intentional purpose, and we need to be also respectful of
Yeah.
people's time. Like I literally, like, I just started my first workshop this week, which I'm super stoked about. And I know
Yeah.
it's a 3 week workshop. I have 5 students in it,
Oh my
and
God.
it's a beta, it's a beta, trial. And I am doing all of that because I want to make sure that when I do offer this to people, and I'm asking for someone's money and someone's time, and it's going to be beyond valuable. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, like how, like I want the reaction to be like, how am I paying so little for this? Because
Yeah.
I'm getting so much out of it, right? And I'm not even doing like courses, like I that's not even on my purview, you know what I mean? Right now it's like about understanding my market, understanding, what are the problems that I specifically can solve. What's the need? That's at the core of entrepreneurship. We've forgotten that the core of entrepreneurship is like there's a problem in society or in the world that I am the qualified person to help solve and make better. And so, what do you think are ways that we can get back to that thinking as creators? I think we creators are at the forefront of culture and bridging the gap in this new world.
I love what you're saying about entrepreneurs, like take responsibility for a problem in the world and just say, you know what, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna take this on. That definitely resonates with me when it comes to, I think, coming from a place of service. One of the things that I have been guilty from, because the more successful you get, the more inquiries you get, the more emails, the more offers. I found myself getting really annoyed when somebody hits me up on Slack, when I get a message, when I get, a text message that says, "Hey, can you do this thing 2 days from now?" And I've had to reframe my brain to say, this is an opportunity to help someone that I like and that I care about, because those are the only people that I really like let in my circle anyway. And so it's like I have these various expertise, skill sets that I can help people with. And so when you get that little red notification, whatever it is, Slack, message, Facebook, instead of being like, oh, what now? I'm like, who can I help? And sometimes when I find myself in these breaks, in these off days, in these moments of silence, and I have time to kill, I think, who can I help today? Who can I help right now? And following that kind of good energy and seeing where that leads. And even outside of the workspace, is there a family member I can help? Is there a nice message I could write to a colleague or acquaintance that I haven't touched base with in a while? And use that as momentum to keep coming from a mindset of service, as opposed to like, what can I get from the world? What can I get from my clients? Instead, think about, what can I give? Who can I partner with? Who can I collaborate with? Who can I catch up with? And that has been such a great way to build momentum towards like just much more positive mindset around all of this.
I love it. I love it. Actually, that seems like an amazing place to end. Thank you so much for sharing your time and this awesome knowledge around 5 days, 100 videos. And the big takeaway that I'm taking away from that is that, you know, the dream team makes everything better, makes everything work. And you need everyone on the same page in that organization and that operational structure to really, you know, accomplish something like that.
I think it was like 107 videos, but who's counting? You
Oh,
know,
yeah. That's awesome.
100 is a nice even number. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Kris, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.